Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the Senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Welcome to this week's edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan, when I have brief conversations with people I find fascinating. Today's very special guest is Jean Brice, the Director and CIO, Chief Information Officer of Maryland's Legislative Office of Information Systems. He's the guy who makes sure that all our computers and all our online stuff works right. So, Jean, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Thank you, Senator Kagan. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a lot to talk about, and I think people are going to find your job fascinating, especially in these crazy times. So let's start off with your background. It's really fantastic that we were able to lure you to Annapolis. So let's start with the fact that you worked for WMATA, our metro system. You worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield. You worked for Care First. You worked for Kaiser, and in the private sector, Verizon, so many other places. So let's start with how you got started in information technology, and then go ahead and go to how did we get you to come to Annapolis?
Sure. So strangely enough, I have a bachelor's in economics, and as I started my career with the Bank of New York some 30 odd years ago, there was a focus on the financial systems, not systems per se, but the financial realm there, stocks, bonds, and trades, what have you. And that was when the advent of computers started really coming around. Back then, we had mainframes, so on and so forth, and AS400, but there weren't any desktops. So as those devices started to become a little bit more popular, I had a knack for it, and everyone saw that. So that spiraled me and really pushed me in that particular direction. So, PCs were not what they, what they are today. And so you can tell that I've dealt with some pretty prehistoric systems.
We are both over 35 years of age, so.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And it's been absolutely a wonderful ride. So 32 plus years in IT, and progressively, started in New York, made my way to New Jersey, and found my way down here in the DMV area.
So talk about Metro. What was your role like there? And how was that? Why would the average writer care about your having, been there?
Every place that you've worked, you basically bring something from that institution, right? I mean, the workflows and the needs are different, but yet they're the same. At the end of the day, it's about massaging data, delivering data, so on and so forth. Everyone wants to do the same thing organically. Metro was no different. With one caveat, if you look at a hospital system, obviously we're saving lives. And at Metro, we're transporting lives, but we have to make sure of their safety as well. So a lot of the systems are geared towards the safety of our passengers. And my role there was to manage all of the projects, the IT projects for the entire organization. So it was a pretty heavy task because it spanned into hundreds of millions of dollars, and everything was a critical factor because it impacted, the safety of our customers, also, trains being on time, so on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. It's a pretty huge lift. The metro system in DC is the third largest in the country. So, second to, I think, New York and Chicago. So you can just imagine that it's a pretty vast move. Lots of moving parts.
Did you work with Paul Wiedefeld, our Maryland Secretary of Transportation designee by Governor Wes Moore?
Just heard about his appointment, and yes, I did. I was under his leadership for about close to 2 years.
Nice.
He retired shortly before I left the organization to come here to the General Assembly, and he was a very approachable man. It was nothing for him to stop you in the hallway and have a chat with you. That's one of the, I think, good moments that I remember about him in particular.
That's great. Yeah, I like him. I'm excited about him coming back and coming to Annapolis. So why did you apply for this job? What about it did you think was the right next step in your career?
Stability.
And to be clear, for folks who don't know, he just started. Jean just came on board in July of last year. So still learning his way around. And this is your first legislative session.
This is my first session, and so I'm learning as I go, and it's been a wonderful experience so far, 2.5 weeks in. It's busy and it's demanding, but you know, my team and I are up to the challenge. So what brought me here was stability. I wanted something more long-term and permanent in the sense that not that Metro wasn't for some of the other companies I work for, but today's market is very volatile. There's a lot of movement that happens up and happens up and down. I've had a lot of friends go to work for Google, for Meta, for Amazon, and
Yeah.
unfortunately found themselves on the other side of the job market.
Yes.
So and what we do here is extremely important. And that was the other part that drove, because as you become an adult, when you're younger, you're not thinking too much about what's happening around you. But as you get older, everything matters. And you're like, why didn't they paint the stop line? Or whatever. So the smallest things become very important. And the legislators, to include yourself, are part of the fabric of this of our community and of our state. And being part of that and hoping, to see these bills develop into law, it's a wonderful and fantastic thing. It's a great thing.
That's fantastic. Hold on. So you referenced all the layoffs in the tech sector. How have you been doing with recruiting and retaining? Because generally government can never afford to pay really good IT people.
The Department of Legislative Services created an increase boost to make ourselves a little bit more market favorable last year. Probably one of the reasons they were able to get me as well. And because they were the market value, I think we're competitive. And so we're able to really look at, from a retention perspective, everyone was pretty happy with the uptick that they received. And of course, in recruitment, we were able to now start to offer competitive salaries. 2 years ago, maybe that was not the case here.
Yes.
And so, my organization tended to pursue college grads and, kind of new on the field, so on and so forth. But what we lose with that, there's a plus and a minus to that. The plus side is you can get someone at a lower salary and train them up, but the minus side is they don't have a lot of experience.
Well, and then they also leave. They take the experience from us and they go and earn a ton of money somewhere else, right?
Correct. Within a few years.
Yeah.
So that is a downside.
Yeah. So I know that your position and your agency is nonpartisan, bipartisan. So I'm not trying to be super partisan, but it's also notable that Governor Wes Moore, the Moore Miller administration, is also really focused on enhancing government and populating government. And so I think better pay, better benefits, and more people is going to be part of their early agenda. So hopefully that'll help also. How do you do with diversifying your workforce? Women traditionally don't look at STEM. How do we do with women and people of color being hired in the Office of Information Systems?
My mindset, I could speak for myself here, is to always keep things on a sort of equal playing field.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Say it again.
I apologize. I said my mindset has always been to keep things on an equal playing field. Man, woman, black, white, it doesn't matter, obviously the most important factor is the skill set that they're bringing to the organization, but at the same time, you have to be fair. You're 100% correct, Senator. The IT field traditionally was pretty male dominated, and over the years have become very, intermingled and diverse. And there's a lot of very, prominent people now that are CIOs, et cetera, that are women or a minority. So we've made great strides.
Good.
And I don't want to say that I have this particular method, but I do try to create what I call.
Well, and I think, frankly, you're a role model. And so hopefully you're inspiring young people to choose a good career path in government, in public service.
Absolutely.
That would be great. So let's talk about some of the priorities of information systems, because you have a ton on your plate. And I was doing a quick brain dump, and I was thinking about transparency and Marylanders and press, access to government, the video, the links, the posting our bills and making everything available publicly and stuff. Can you talk about how you prioritize, where the challenges are and stuff like that?
There are challenges everywhere, as you well know, because there's information systems. There's the reason why we're typically a large group is because of all the moving parts. And the Department of Legislative Services, and to support the Maryland General Assembly, we have obviously a bunch of committee rooms, and we have, of course, the chambers, the Senate and the House chambers, and all those require certain specific things to work on at all times, to include the voting boards, the microphone systems, the cameras,
Microphones
plugging in
at our desk.
microphones, yeah, at your desk, the actual voting themselves.
Yep.
And all of these pieces, are intertwined, and folks may not realize the intricacy between all of those, systems, how they all marry. And also we have, from a committee perspective, all of the hybrid mediums that we have for testimonials, and then when people witness statements, et cetera, et cetera. And
so I'm going to just explain what that is, since it's totally new and has only been being used for the last week and a half. It used to be that you had to drive to Annapolis, park, wait, sometimes for hours, in order to testify for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Then during COVID, there wasn't any of that. And so it was all video and remote. And so you could sign up and testify on video. And that worked. For the first time this year, you can do either one. You can just submit written testimony. You can submit written testimony and show up in person, or written testimony, whatever, and also testify online. And it's extraordinary. I'm optimistic that we're really going to be able to engage people to kind of show up in the way that works best for them.
Absolutely, Senator. And quite frankly, we are one of the handful of states that's with that capability currently.
Nice.
So that speaks very well for Maryland. And of course, these things are not easy to establish because there's a lot of controls that happens in the background in order for the chairperson to switch between witness and people making statements, questions being asked by members, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but we're able to get through it. So the technology is there. So from a priority perspective, that's part of the operations that I wanted to speak to. Obviously, sessions and those committee hearings, but we also have bill drafters that are very busy at night, during the weekends, so on and so forth, and then to support them to ensure that those bills are logged and created so they can be processed. That's another high-level priority.
Wow. Well, we got to give a shout out to our bill drafters and our amendment drafters, because they do extraordinary work, and they are so thoughtful and available and smart and thorough, and big fan. I've gotten some wonderful bill drafts from them.
Yes.
Let's shift to the bane of Annapolis for all these years. When I was in, I served 8 years in the House of Delegates, and we had this program called Commence, and it sucked. And I was out for 12 years, and I came back as a senator, and Commence was unchanged. It's so terrible. And I am thrilled to be one of the guinea pigs to test IndyGov, which is a high-end database and stuff. Why don't you talk about how we can better serve our constituents through IndyGov?
Is considered probably the top tier in the constituent management system arena. So what Commence did, which was a homegrown and written application for constituent management, is by far outdone with IndyGov 100-fold. So statistical analysis and other things, so with Commence, you had to use a combination of that application and constant contact so you can reach out to your constituents. With IndyGov, it's all embedded in one. And it also has a newsfeed feature as well. So you're going to be able to do a whole lot more and reach them at almost instantaneously with whatever news that you have to share.
Amazing. And I've got 2 weeks of training coming up. So in the middle of
Yes.
everything else, I'm going to be sitting there and learning as much. And I was thrilled to be part of the process to help select this vendor. So I am hopeful, but I know that's another big piece that you and your team have been working on. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the scary thing that we all think about or don't want to think about, which is cybersecurity. How vulnerable are we?
Well. There's a constant cybersecurity is a never-ending job, obviously, because the bad actors out there are constantly trying different ways and pathways to infiltrate and to impact us. So we follow all the basic standards and protocols from a cyber perspective, as highlighted by NIST, which
Wait,
is
wait,
one of the
NIST, the National Institutes of Standards and Technology. And where's it located? Oh yeah, the heart of District 17, my district.
That's right. Well done, Senator. Well
Right.
done. Exactly. And so they set a lot of the parameters and guidelines and frameworks for proper cybersecurity protocols. And so we utilize that as our sort of guide to push up in that good direction. But also, since we are a part of the Department of IT of Maryland, to a degree, we also have a second layer of protection because we purchase our internet access through them. So they have one layer and then we have another layer, and the two working in concert together gives us that double protection.
Nice.
And we're coming up with some other things that we want to do as far as like enhancing our security policy altogether, making sure that folks are well educated by instituting a cyber training program that once a year requires everyone to actually go through the training and pass.
I have been pushing for that. So my district is also not only including NIST, but it also is up the high-tech corridor. Rockville and Gaithersburg is part of the heart of that. And I've heard so many cyber horror stories. And so the idea of some well-meaning intern clicking on a link in an email and shutting down, that legislator's office or maybe the whole General Assembly must be terrifying.
It is. It's the one thing that I can honestly say that keeps me asleep. I mean, it keeps me up. And it's because if a system crashes in the traditional sense, you can rebuild it pretty quickly as long as your data is stored somewhere and you can sort of from your backups you can basically restore. But when you have a ransomware or any type of infection, it's hence its name virus. It basically goes around and impacts and affects everyone.
Yep.
And so that's the one thing that does keep me.
So I said well-meaning intern, but obviously it could be a legislator. There's a really, among the 188 legislators, plus all of our staff and our interns and our committee staff and committee council and all that, there are a lot of people who are using these systems. And some of us are pretty well-versed and pretty sophisticated, and some of us are pretty basic, and we might be able to push a power button to turn something on, but don't know what to do from there. How does your department sort of address and navigate and help coach legislators and staff of all capacities and all skill levels?
We try to catch most of them during onboarding by providing some training of our systems, how to access certain things, to let them know what our support call numbers are when they need help, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we do a pretty good job doing that process. We probably could be a little bit better at, maybe refresher courses, if you will, for those who feel that they need it, but pretty much it's done during the onboarding stage. And, one of the things that I'm looking at putting together is a sort of an FAQ space on our website. So that way, common questions, instead of having to call IT, they can just go and say, oh, how do I do this? Oh, okay, you do it like this. So they can sort of help themselves from that perspective.
Well, and Anna Hogan just came into our committee, and I assume she's doing all 4 Senate committees and all 6 House committees, and just reminding us or teaching us how to use the floor system and what documents are available to us, because you guys have a wealth of information out there, but if we don't get access to it, it's kind of wasted. So just this week, you instituted a new policy, which is a little bit driving me crazy, which is if you walk away from your computer for 30 minutes, which includes in my home, in my hotel room, no one else is going to be using it. I've got to log back in with my password, which is about this long. And then I make a typo and I have to do it again and again. And I'll talk about, is that best practices? Is that something innovative? Why is that important?
It's absolutely best practice. One of the worst things that can happen if you left your computer, unattended, and we're not talking necessarily in your home, obviously, unless you have kids running around that might just kind of want to fool around a little bit. But in the public space, if you will, anyone can walk up to your computer and send out a blast email on your behalf, and with not, very nice words, and there, or they can, or they can access a website that pretty much, can introduce a virus to the organization. Because once you turn on your computer, we have what's called auto login to our VPN. So you're not doing the secondary step to get in on the network. It's automatically done for you. So anything that happens from that point on exposes this. So the screensaver lock is a standard practice that's been around for many, 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 many years. So instituting it here, yes, there was a little bit of pushback for folks who just haven't had to do it.
Yeah.
But there is a compromise coming. And that compromise is, how do we make login a little bit easier? So there are two pieces to that. A, we can use pins instead of these long passwords. The password will still exist in the background, but it'll be a 6-digit pin, something similar to what you use with your bank card or whatever, or at the ATM. And secondly, we have cameras that can auto log you in just by seeing, facial recognition. So that way, no more remembering of anything. You look up, sees you, and it logs you right in.
What if it sees me in the morning before I put on makeup? All right, let's move on about that. Oh, I have several more questions and I want to start to, do you monitor legislation that's being introduced, and would you ever be called upon or be tempted to testify as an expert or in support or opposition to legislation that one of us is sponsoring?
I believe, according to my job requirements, there may be times when I need to call to testify, but it would have to be something to do with affiliation.
That makes sense. Okay. Let's pivot. Do you mentor young people who are interested in IT careers? How do people find you, and what is the best advice you can give to someone who's thinking about going into information technology?
I do mentor as much as I possibly can. There's been several times where, as we hired interns at the hospital system that I worked for under the University of Maryland umbrella, at one point, I was asked to chaperone about 35 interns and just give them a flavor of what the IT field represents for them as opportunity. And the IT field a long time ago used to just be programming primarily.
Right.
Now there's probably around 10 to 12 to 15 different positions you can have in IT easily, and then different categories and criteria, right? So, you can have, so you have web developers, you have application developers, kind of two separate things. You would have technical support folks, you have telecom folks, you've got infrastructure people, you've got audio video like we have here. That might not exist everywhere, but that's still part of the IT framework. So, I've gone to colleges and spoken to make sure that they understand how to approach the opportunities within IT. Interning is probably one of the best routes because it's considered experience, and then you can get your feet wet and get in there. So it's really important that people understand where the opportunities are, that they don't have to have 10 to 15 years of experience to break into this field.
Love it. Love it. That's great. Is there anything that I've left out that you want to talk about? Anything you want to pitch or explain that we haven't covered before we go to the Fast Five?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot, actually. And I just want to say that this was a great opportunity to talk to you because, I think that more of this needs to happen so people see how much we care about it. You know, one of the greatest achievements for me from an IT perspective was helping to build the MSNBC studios over 20 plus years ago.
Dang.
Yes. And, you know, it gave me an opportunity to work with people like Soledad O'Brien, Tom Brokaw, just to name Brian Williams, to name a few. So the IT field can span you into a lot of different directions. That's the key. I think I would love people to remember.
That's fantastic. I love it. Okay. Well, Jean Brice, director of the, wait, I missed a part of your, hold on. Director and CIO, sorry, I knew it wasn't, the Chief Information Officer of Maryland's Legislative Office of Information System. Fast five quick questions with quick answers to help folks get to know you better. So question number one, what is your favorite tech device?
My phone.
Okay. I should always say other than your phone. What's your second favorite? That's it. That's too easy. We're all
okay.
to them.
My second favorite, oh gosh, you know, I'm gonna say my laptop.
All right.
That's why I do all of it.
Yeah, I get it. Question number two. What is your favorite junk food?
It's a good one. It's probably good old hamburger. A good old
Hamburger. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Question three. What do you like to do in your free time, your spare time that is away from screens?
Love to play pool, billiards.
Nice.
I'm a recent golfer, so that's something that I absolutely enjoy. And binge watch certain series on television.
Okay. Question four. If you could travel anywhere in the world and neither time nor money were an object, where would you want to go?
Ooh, wow, that's a loaded question. Maybe to Egypt to see the
Pyramids.
Pyramids, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Why not? One of the 7 wonders.
There you go. I've been there. I was wearing white jeans on that day, and I had the opportunity to go into the pyramids. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad news."
Did you actually do it though?
No, I went out. Yeah, a bunch of us went out. We were all in line, and then a bunch of us peeled off. So yeah, I knew I would regret it, but I did not do it. Nor did I ride the camel that some folks were doing. So next time.
I hear camels can be mean.
That's what I understand, but I think we were with some nice ones. But
Okay.
Question 5, the question that I ask every one of my guests. Jean Brice, the Director and Chief Information Officer of the Maryland's Office of Information System. What is your hidden secret superpower? What is something you're really good at, a skill or talent that you have that most folks can't do?
I remember numbers very well. So in any sequence almost. So for instance, if you to calculate something in my head, it comes very, very, very easily. Yeah. I think that's one of my superpowers. I would probably say, yeah. So my memory, I think, probably is my favorite superpower.
Oh, that's good. That's helpful. Yeah. Well, Jean Brice, thank you so much for taking time to kibitz today. I know that you wanted the questions in advance, which I never do. So thank you for trusting me that I wasn't going to do any gotcha. I don't think there were any hard questions there. But it was lovely. And I'm so looking forward to continuing to work with you and your team. And thank you for keeping us safe and updated and accessible to our constituents and people around the country and around the world who are interested in Maryland's General Assembly.
Pleasure, Senator Kagan. It was very painless. So I appreciate the tons of questions that you asked and would love to do it again.
Perfect. Stay well. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. You too.
Take care. Bye.
Take care.